Coming up today, raining in North Korea will be high on President Park Geun-hye's to-do list when she jets off to Washington this week for the Nuclear Security Summit. She'll meet with the leaders of the US, China and Japan. For the first time since the end of World War II, Japan's military is now permitted to fight on foreign soil, as a law passed last year takes effect. Plus, there's been a security alert in Washington after a man pulled out a weapon in Capitol Hill, where Congress sits. Police say the suspect is in custody after threatening officers. Stay tuned for these stories and more. Hello, it's noon on Tuesday, the 29th of March. You're tuned in to our midday newscast here on Arirang TV. Thank you ever so much for joining us. I'm Mark Broom. Our top story this afternoon, President Park Geun-hye jets off to Washington this week for the Nuclear Security Summit. On the sidelines of the summit, the South Korean leader will be meeting with numerous other world leaders on the need to keep the heat on North Korea for its recent nuclear and missile provocations. Our presidential office correspondent Song Ji-sun has the details.
Before the official programs begin at the Nuclear Security Summit on Thursday, President Park Geun-hye will kick off the day by holding one-on-one talks with U.S. President Barack Obama. The two will then be joined by Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe for a trilateral summit, where the leaders will discuss North Korea's nuclear issues. President Park and Prime Minister Abe have also set aside time for bilateral talks. It will be their first face-to-face meeting since the leaders met in Seoul in November last year to iron out the details of a landmark agreement on Japan's wartime sexual slavery issue, which was sealed the following month. Before heading to a reception for the Nuclear Security Summit, President Park will speak with her Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping. Officials say the two will hold in-depth talks on North Korea. The following day, the South Korean leader will sit down with recently elected Argentinian President Mauricio Macri in Washington. Prior to returning to Seoul, President Park will make a short visit to Mexico for a summit with her Mexican counterpart, Enrique Peña Nieto. She will ask both Latin American leaders for their support in strictly and effectively implementing international sanctions on North Korea.
The president will stress the danger posed by North Korea's nuclear development. She will also urge the international community to work together to ensure Pyongyang's denuclearization.
Given that this is the first multilateral summit since North Korea's fourth nuclear test and a long-range missile launch, President Park will look to gather as much international support as she can to steer North Korea away from its nuclear ambitions. Song Ji-sun, Arirang News.
Now, with the April 13th general election fast approaching, the country's political parties are refining their messages to the public. The ruling Saenuri Party held its first campaign committee meeting this morning. The 5 members, including party chairman Kim Moo-sung, vowed to focus their campaign message on national security and revitalizing the economy through job creation. The main opposition Minju Party of Korea's interim leader Kim Jong-in headed to Busan, located in the conservative stronghold of Gyeongsang-namdo province. There, he met with candidates to explain the party's message on economic issues. The minor opposition People's Party reprimanded one of its candidates for trying to make a deal with a Minju Party candidate running in the same district, reiterating that the party is against forming alliances with any other party. Now, could the North Korean leadership end up regretting its recent nuclear and missile provocations? Pyongyang has been able to circumvent UN sanctions in the past, but with the latest round of measures the most comprehensive yet, will they force the Kim Jong-un regime to take a different path? Kim Mo-kyun reports.
It's widely believed the UN Security Council's most recent round of sanctions on North Korea will deal a severe blow to the country's already weak economy. According to a report released by the Seoul-based Korea International Trade Association on Tuesday, the products covered by the UN resolution account for nearly 45% of North Korea's exports based on 2014 figures. The sanctions includes bans on any type of transactions on natural resources such as iron ore, coal, gold, and titanium, except when related to public welfare. In dollar terms, an inability to export the listed items could cost the regime some $1.5 billion a year. The report says this could eventually see North Korea's export revenues cut in half. By country, North Korea has been exporting a whopping 97% of its items banned by the UN to China, including 100% of its coal and iron ore exports. The overall figure has been on a steady rise in recent years too, indicating Pyongyang's high level of dependence on Beijing. The report says North Korea's revenue stream could be badly affected by the latest sanctions, providing the measures are implemented properly. It says the effectiveness lies squarely with how faithfully China, North Korea's longtime ally and main trading partner, sticks to the resolution. Beijing supported the sanctions at the UN Security Council, but China has been accused in the past of agreeing to sanctions but later loosening up on them. Kim Mo-gyun, Arirang News.
Now, the South Korean government will cut discretionary spending by government ministries and agencies by 10% next year. During a cabinet meeting Tuesday, the government approved a 2017 budget guideline that aims to use the savings on projects that will expand the country's growth and create new jobs. The finance ministry says the cut does not mean the government is trimming the budget as a whole. Instead, it's restructuring its expenditures to increase efficiency. The government plans to offer incentives to ministries and government organizations that manage to slash their discretionary spending as required. Now, Korea's Consumer Sentiment Index ended its downward streak this month. The Bank of Korea says the index came in at 100. That's up 2 points from February. The improved sentiment is mainly attributed to easing threats out of North Korea and the recent climb in global crude oil prices that in turn stabilized financial markets. A central bank official adds, though, that it's hard to say the economy is showing any signs of real improvement. The index had dropped for 3 straight months since December last year. A reading over 100 means optimists outnumber pessimists. A gunman has been shot after drawing a weapon while trying to enter the Capitol Visitor Center in Washington, D.C. The suspect was shot by police and taken to the hospital. A female bystander is also in hospital with a minor injury. Now, no word yet on a possible motive, but the man is known to local police for a previous disruption of a House session in which he called himself a prophet of God. That's led police to conclude this is an isolated act by a single person. The police chief says no officers were injured, contrary to initial reports. The man's car has been found on the Capitol grounds, and police have recovered a weapon at the scene. The building was placed on lockdown for about an hour, but will be open again on Tuesday. The White House was also placed on lockdown for half an hour. A new security law which enables Japanese troops to fight in foreign wars for the first time since World War II takes effect on this Tuesday. The legislation was pushed strongly by Prime Minister Shinzo Abe and his ruling coalition, but the move has proved deeply unpopular with Japan's neighbours and even ordinary Japanese citizens. Kwon So-ah has this report.
For the first time in more than 7 decades, the Japanese military will be permitted to join overseas conflicts as a fighting force. The new security law, passed in September last year, loosens post-World War II constraints on Japan's use of force to its own self-defense only. The controversial law, backed by Prime Minister Shinzo Abe's ruling coalition, is intended to strengthen Japan's defense against the growing security challenge posed by China's growing military strength and North Korea's missile and nuclear threats. On Monday, Abe defended the law, saying the right to collective defense is needed to ensure the people's right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. He also stressed the need for Japan and the U.S. to work together on missile defense when dealing with Pyongyang. Japan's neighbors, including South Korea and China, have concerns about the law, given Japan's history of aggression in the region. China's foreign ministry on Monday called on Tokyo to put more effort into enhancing mutual trust with its neighbors.
Japan's neighbors and the international community are concerned about this issue due to history reasons. We hope the Japanese will draw lessons from history, stick to the path of peaceful development, and prudently handle its military and security affairs.
Within Japan, opposition parties, which attempted to block the legislation last year, say the law is unconstitutional, and many Japanese citizens fear the law could erode Japan's post-war pacifism. A poll conducted by Tokyo-based Kyodo News last weekend found nearly 50% of respondents were not in favor of it. Just 39% viewed the changes in a positive light. Kwon So-ah, Arirang News.
Now, the only person arrested and charged with involvement in the Brussels terror attacks has been released for lack of evidence. Belgian prosecutors say the clues that had led to the arrest of the man, known as Faycal C, were not substantiated by the ongoing investigation. He was initially charged with participation in a terrorist group and terrorist killings. In an attempt to find that suspect there, Belgian police have released this CCTV footage of the so-called man-in-hat suspect in the Brussels attacks. It's believed he fled the airport after his bomb failed to go off. In that video, you could see the suspect was seen wearing a white jacket, a hat, and he was pushing a baggage cart with a suitcase on it. Last week, suicide bombings killed at least 35 people in Brussels. Around 100 are still receiving treatment in hospital for their injuries. The FBI has dropped its legal case against Apple after successfully breaking into the iPhone of one of the San Bernardino shooters. The U.S. Justice Department wrote in a court filing on Monday that they had successfully accessed data from the phone with the help from an outside party, is how they put it. It ends a 6-week legal battle, which Apple CEO Tim Cook had warned would open a Pandora's box of government control on tech companies if passed. The case sparked a national debate on the issue of digital privacy, with public leaders such as Barack Obama and Bill Gates even getting involved. Apple will now be looking to fix any vulnerabilities found, but it's not clear whether the US government will share the information on how they got around the security encryption. Now, cheaper airline tickets are prompting Koreans to take more domestic and international flights. The Transport Ministry says the number of Korean nationals taking flights around the country or overseas surpassed 8.1 million last month. That's up more than 15% on year. The ministry attributes the increase to the expansion of domestic flight routes by low-cost carriers, especially to Korea's beautiful southern resort island of Jeju. Fuel surcharge exemptions on international flights was another key factor as well. The extra saving it provided encouraged more Koreans to book flights to Southeast Asia, China, Japan, and the United States. And the place just on the video there, Korea's main gateway, Incheon International Airport, marks its 15th anniversary this year. And to celebrate the occasion, it's holding a series of cultural and musical events in the Arrivals Hall. Oh Young reports.
When travelling to a new and exciting country, every second you spend there can be precious. That's why most of us plan ahead, looking up local attractions and booking tickets for special shows. But for those visiting Korea, there's no need to go through the hassle. Once you arrive at Incheon Airport, you can enjoy some of the world's finest cultural performances. Incheon International Airport and Arirang TV have launched a series of spring season concerts, marking the airport's 15th anniversary. During the 5-day period, special spring performances begin at 4 p.m. and they'll be free for all passers-by in the arrivals hall.
My kids and I came out of the arrivals gate and followed the music to this concert. It sounds wonderful.
We were waiting for a friend and decided to enjoy the music in the meantime.
Ranging from songs by British opera artists to the rhythmic pulse of Korea's traditional instruments, the music animates the airport.
With our high-quality facilities and premium service, Incheon International Airport has been named the world's best airport for 11 consecutive years. So with our 15th anniversary on March 29th and the advent of spring, we wanted to offer special cultural experiences for our passengers.
If you missed the special spring performances, there are plenty more musical treats in store. 2 pianists will go head-to-head in daily piano showdowns, exciting passers-by with their lively repertoires. And before catching a flight, you can enjoy mini concerts held at various times during the day, all while you hit the duty-free shops. With these so-called culture port events, Incheon International Airport is no longer just a place to pass through, but the venue for an all-round cultural experience. Oh Young, Arirang News.
Well, that's where we're going to have to leave it on this Tuesday afternoon here in Seoul. For more of the latest, don't forget to check out the website arirang.com/news, and do download our smartphone application. You can find all the latest Arirang TV programs and, of course, all the latest news stories on there. Just search for Arirang TV in the usual places, your app store being one of them. Have a great rest of the day. Goodbye.